In a world marked by diversities and pluralities, tolerance has become a fundamental value in building more just and inclusive societies. The ability to accept and respect differences is seen as a solid foundation for harmonious coexistence among individuals with diverse worldviews, beliefs, and identities. However, this virtue, so celebrated, hides an intriguing paradox that deserves to be explored with seriousness and emotion. Philosopher Karl Popper proposed the concept of the paradox of tolerance, suggesting that unlimited tolerance can lead to the destruction of the tolerant society itself. In his formulation, Popper argues that if a society is completely tolerant of all ideas, including intolerant ones, it runs the risk of allowing intolerant forces to gain space and eventually suppress the tolerance that allowed them to thrive. At first glance, the idea of limiting tolerance may seem contradictory, as tolerance is commonly seen as a pillar of freedom and democracy. However, delving deeper into this paradox, we realize that the pursuit of a truly tolerant society requires a critical analysis of the threats that can undermine this ideal. Tolerance is not an invitation to accept everything without questioning or evaluating the impact of ideas on the social fabric. It must be accompanied by the responsibility to discern between respect for legitimate diversity of opinions and the rejection of those that seek to suppress that very diversity. Here, emotion arises, as tolerance cannot be a shield to protect ideas that promote intolerance and exclusion. History is replete with examples where excessive tolerance allowed the flourishing of movements and ideologies that, once in power, revealed themselves as destructive forces to the very tolerance that harbored them. Nazism in Germany, for example, rose in a context of excessive tolerance, allowing the spread of an ideology that proved intolerant and genocidal. The seriousness of the paradox of tolerance becomes evident when we observe the tangible consequences of societies that neglect the need to set limits on tolerance. The rise of extremist groups, hate speech, and the erosion of democratic institutions are manifestations of misguided tolerance, which fails to discern between legitimate diversity and threats to that diversity. When discussing the paradox of tolerance, it is crucial to understand that it is not a defense of intolerance but a call for critical vigilance. The tolerant society must protect itself against those who seek to exploit this virtue to undermine the principles that sustain it. This requires a delicate balance between preserving freedom of expression and rejecting speeches that incite violence and the suppression of fundamental rights. The seriousness of the theme is also related to the need for education and awareness. People need to understand that tolerance is not a blank check for the indiscriminate acceptance of any idea. Education plays a crucial role in shaping critical citizens who can discern between enriching diversity and ideas that represent a threat to peaceful coexistence. Emotion comes into play when we confront the injustices and harm caused by intolerant ideas that were allowed to prosper under the guise of tolerance. The human suffering resulting from discrimination based on race, gender, religion, and sexual orientation is the painful consequence of neglecting to address the paradox of tolerance with the seriousness it deserves. The search for solutions to this paradox requires open and constructive dialogue, where emotions cannot be ignored. Indignation in the face of injustices fueled by intolerant ideas serves as a drive for action and social transformation. The tolerant society must be able to channel this emotion into building bridges and promoting an environment where diversity is truly celebrated without giving space to intolerance. In conclusion, the paradox of tolerance challenges us to rethink the nature of our coexistence. The seriousness with which we approach tolerance and the emotion we invest in defending a just and inclusive society will determine whether we can overcome the threats that arise when tolerance is misunderstood. Confronting this paradox is not just an intellectual necessity but a moral and social responsibility that defines the kind of society we want to build for future generations. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Consider checking important information.